Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and you're gonna be a craftier person after watching this video. Paintball producer fails to listen to experienced advice, has his rule abused and removed from the game. The backstory. I play paintball with an established scenario team that travels all over the USA playing large scenario games and have been flown to Europe by our sponsors to play over there as well. We as a team have existed for over 25 years and have played hundreds of games together. These scenario games typically last for 8 to 26 hours, played over 100 or more acres and consist of usually 2 or more sides with upwards to hundreds, sometimes rarely thousands of players on the field at once. We have consulted and run our own games during our years. Needless to say, we have a lot of experience, and when we are invited to games we will typically make some suggestions to the field if they have a rule that is easily abused and can break the game they are running. We usually do our best to explain the interpretation as we don't want to ruin anyone's fun with poor execution. There is a standard set of rules that a lot of experienced producers will borrow from as it has been well play tested. One of the aspects of most scenario games is the field role of a medic. A player who can revive a player who's been hit provided some simple conditions are met. This allows players a second chance on the field without having to walk off and wait for reinsertion into the game. It can help add some fun and usually helps prevent cheating, as a player can attempt to get healed and keep playing instead of having to deal with the moral dilemma of the sometimes long walk off the field to wait to be reinserted if they are eliminated by the result of a boneheaded decision. It also allows for some pretty aggressive moves on the field, as the player can sometimes get a second chance. Usually after discussion with the producer, and if our interpretation is correct, most producers will heed our advice because it's easier to fix a rule before the game starts than after. The setup for the malicious compliance. Prior to arriving at this particular field, we read the rules that were published beforehand and after arrival had met with the producer to explain our concern for his interpretation of the standard medic role. Usually the medics have to wipe off the old hit, as to not confuse other players with what is recent and an eliminating hit, and to prevent the player if shady from claiming it's an old hit and continue playing. Usually medics have a limited number of times they can revive a player, and a brief window of time to which they can heal. Medics also usually are not allowed to heal players who have been hit in the head, as to also provide a taste of realism to the event. Players waiting for a medic are not allowed to wander around and have to wait out their time limit as to where they were hit. This particular producer had decided to skip tradition and developed his own rule. Simply put, the medic just has to touch the player in question to consider them healed, no other conditions or procedure. We attempted to discuss the reasons why this was a bad idea, but was informed that the producer was an experienced producer and it cannot be abused. Anything else is overkill, that we were unfounded in our concerns. We decided we weren't going to get any further with him and left to prepare for the game. The malicious compliance. During the early part of the game, we were making a push up a well-defended hill. One of our players had advanced too far to get a prop, a piece of equipment unique to the story of the game, a McCutcheon, and gotten himself hit while making a grab for it. We needed the prop to complete a different task on the field later. We were outnumbered and in poor location, but we had a medic player with us who was enjoying our shenanigans. We yelled to the hit player to hold his location and for him to yell to the medic, so the other players would know he wasn't just laying there. We called a referee over to explain our plan and asked for rules clarification for our interpretation. He confirmed and validated our plan was within the rules. We implemented it. What we did was to form a very tight circle of players standing shoulder to shoulder around the medic so that no shots could make it past our wall of players. The medic was to continuously move his hands over our backs to heal us, since he only had to touch us, while we advanced up the hill to retrieve our fallen player and the prop. With everyone ready, including the referee in tow to eliminate the medic if he got hit, which would have ended our plan, we made our march up the hill, enclosed the hit player on our wall so the medic could touch him, and then proceeded to back down to our original gathering point. Those of us in the front took a lot of paint hits and pain, but we knew that going into it, the medic was not hit as confirmed by the ref. Our plan succeeded. This resulted in much yelling and complaining by the opposing force, the referee calling over a few refs nearby to defuse the situation, while also explaining that what we did was well within the rules and with the referee's blessing. The fallout. Most of us being low on supplies decided to head off the field, leaving another player to move the prop to where it needed to go and continue the game. By the time we got back to our tent off field, the head ref was waiting for us as he had received complaints from other players and for us to explain what had happened. We explained our side of it, the referee involved and the situation. The head ref confirmed with the field ref and by the end of it was cracking up. He made an executive decision and radioed to the producer and the on-field refs that medics' powers on the field are to be revoked until further notice. The producer eventually came over to apologise, and the medic role was entirely removed from the game for the rest of the event as it was easier than reworking them during the game. Small victories, alarm companies, and doctors. This is more like a small victory malicious compliance, something that you get to do during a mundane job that gives you a little smile in the middle of your boring shift, so please adjust your expectations accordingly. Here we go. Back in college, I worked for an alarm company to pay the bills. Specifically, I worked in what is called a central station, which is where the residential, commercial fire alarms would ring into. It's 24/7, 365 days, so you could easily adjust your schedule to classes. Now, how the job works is that you sit in front of a computer, and if an alarm goes off somewhere, it pops up on your screen, and you have all the basic information: name on the account, address, phone numbers to the premises, relevant fire or police phone numbers, the type of alarm, front door, second floor window, fire, hold up at gunpoint, etc. And finally, there was also a list of RPs, which are responsible parties, meaning these are the people you call after dispatching the appropriate emergency service to let them know what is happening, and that said emergency services have been dispatched. The default protocol for dealing with alarms goes like this. Number 1. Call the premises to see if anyone is there and verify if the alarm is real or not. If you get an answer, the person must provide you with a present authorization code. No code, say hi to the police. Number 2. If there is no answer, or no authorization code, or wrong authorization code, you call in dispatch. For example, hi, this is operator 123 with the alarm company, and we're reporting a 458 audible at 555 Jones Street. And number 3. Call the responsible parties. Now, for those unfamiliar with burglar or fire alarms, I can assure you that 99% of them are false. Wind rattles a window, the alarm goes off. Someone hits the wrong button on the alarm panel, we get an alarm notification, you get the idea. Now, this pisses off the police and fire because they roll out to the emergency and there's no emergency. This is bad because if there is a real emergency somewhere, then they're already preoccupied with this false alarm. Additionally, it's expensive to run a fire truck to a false alarm, cost of gas, etc. Also, if for example someone mistakenly pushes the 211 silent button, a hold up, then police roll with guns drawn and it can be very dangerous. So, many municipalities began to enact false alarm fines. Usually you get like 1 or 3 false alarms per year, and any more you get fined. The fine started at about $300 and then ramp up for multiple false alarms. Note, this was in the 90s, I'm sure the fines are much heavier now. Because of this, many accounts had modified protocols that required you to call the responsible parties first before dispatching any emergency services. Now, some of our accounts were the homes of doctors. You knew this because the name on the account would say Dr. and Mrs. Joe and Karen Smith, or whatever, and you could tell by the address and the alarm type that it was their residence and not the doctor's medical office. For example, you wouldn't get a living room window alarm from an office. Also, the first number on the responsible parties list would almost always be the doctor's office number, which also identified the premises as a residence. This is where the small victory malicious compliance comes into play. Many doctors would have a modified call list, so instead of calling the responsible parties after dispatch, they requested we would call before dispatch so they could say yes or no to dispatching in order to avoid any false alarm fees. Problem is, they wouldn't tell the receptionist about this setup. So inevitably, what would happen is that we would get an alarm, call the responsible party first, which is usually the doctor's office, as instructed, and the following conversation would ensue. Ring ring. Thank you for calling Dr. Smith's office, how can I help you? Hello. This is operator 123 from the alarm company. I'm calling to report a burglar alarm at 555 Jones Street. Is Dr. Smith available? Now, what I assume is that if the person calling isn't immediately recognizable as a patient or insurance company, the receptionist goes into autopilot and just assumes it's a solicitation call even though we distinctly say we have received a burglar alarm. So the receptionist usually immediately follows up with a dismissive, "I'm sorry, he's with a patient, can I take a message?" Again, even after we've told them, we are receiving a burglar alarm. Small victory, malicious compliance. Sure, again, we are receiving a burglar alarm at 555 Jones Street. Please let Dr. Smith know that we will dispatch the police immediately. Thank you. Now, if you want a little more satisfying malicious compliance, you hang up quickly and wait like 30 seconds, because the doctor will call back immediately, flustered and demanding you don't call the police. Otherwise, you'll hear the receptionist's tone go into panic when they say, "Wait!" And miraculously, 10 seconds later, the doctor who was supposedly with a patient is now on the phone giving you their authorization code. I know, small victory, but always made the operators giggle at how quick the tune changed when they actually paid attention to what we were saying. Thanks for reading, and have a good day. I'm kinda confused by this, because what's the point of having an alarm if you assume it's gonna be false? I understand trying to dodge a fine and everything, but all a burglar would have to do is set off your alarm a couple of times a month and then break in and steal all your stuff, because the homeowner has assumed it's another false alarm and called off the police. So, what's the point? Okay, so that's all for r/MaliciousCompliance. I really hope you did enjoy it. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. My Twitter, Discord, and Patreon links are in the description, and any support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!